Okay, quick one this time. Don't want to spend too much time on a video anymore, but quick one for you all. I saw this video and a phone call was made after I saw it. So let's just watch this video quickly.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, your government has just signed a new pact with the UN, and this one's called Pact for the Future. And it is a pact for the future, just not your future. For example, did you enjoy seeing this Islamic monument in the streets of Sydney recently? Well, prepare to see a whole lot more of it, because Action 6E of this agreement stipulates that instead of promoting the idea that migrants should respect the dignity of their host nation's culture, we must respect the dignity of migrants. Action 6E also asserts that we must strengthen global cooperation for regular migration. So just in case you weren't okay with the fact that our government has invited another 770,000 new arrivals to our shores in just the past year alone, don't worry, this pact compels you to be okay with it. But this next one's a silent winner for me, because Action 6A pledges Australia to secure an ambitious outcome at the Second World Summit for Social Development in 2025. And in case you were wondering, this Second World Summit is concerned primarily with, you guessed it, equity, inclusion and social justice. And by now we all know that these words are simply globalist doublespeak for discrimination against the Anglo inhabitants of Western nations and more severe legal consequences for thought and speech crimes. Can't wait to see what Australian legislation brings in 2026. As a nation, it is time to finally stand up and do away with the unelected bureaucratic NGOs such as the UN, the WEF and the WHO that believe mistakenly that they have the right to interfere with our lives. At One Nation, we will always advocate for your basic human freedoms and put national sovereignty first. It's up to us to stop this. In October, let's kick the major party governments to the curb and vote different. Vote One Nation on October 26th and let's put an end to government and globalist overreach. See you there.
Seems important to everybody, doesn't it? Seems like foreign interests are manipulating your politicians. Seems like they are in a Section 44 breach, acknowledgement or adherence to or obedience to foreign interests. Foreign interests. So I just want to read through this letter that I sent. So I was in town and I saw Stephen Bennett of the LNP, and my God, what an arrogant piece of shit this man is. I wouldn't vote for him if my life depended on it. The guy doesn't know anything and sits at his table with an air of arrogance and then stood up and tried to tower over the top of everybody because he wanted to look like he was the power figure. He couldn't sit there and look across the table at us. I spoke to Nick Muir on the phone and he was a bit busy at the time. He may call me back, he may not. But then I saw Arno, another candidate for One Nation for the Burnett district. And he's just a normal bloke. Had a bunch of chairs around so that everybody could sit and talk at the same level. He was interested in what people had to say. Whereas Stephen Bennett looked like he had a fence up in front of him, trying to defend himself from every accusation that came. Do you work for the United Nations, Stephen Bennett? You're an ex-police officer. What do you know about the war crimes that you committed in your job? Your job. And now you want to sit there and try and manipulate the local region on behalf of Queensland and can't answer any questions relative to Queensland. Oh, that's a federal issue. That's a federal issue. I brought up a hospital and I asked you a very clear question. Why are they so shit in Queensland? Why are they so crap? So I'm going to read a letter now that I wrote to Nick and to Arno and to Pauline, One Nation. So let's read this letter. Right, so I want to go through this email. I've sent this to Nick Muir and Arno Blank, both of One Nation, both who I spoke to either on the phone or in person. So coomera@queensland.onenation.org.au and Burnett at. So first up, thank you to Nick Muir for picking up the phone. Pauline could learn much from this purely graceful way of answering the phone yourself and speaking for yourself. Well done to Nick. Pauline, take a note of it and do the same. I rang a mobile number and Nick answered it, and yes, it was his personal phone, and the way he answered the phone was brilliant. Just a normal bloke like you and me, and was able to have a normal conversation about things. He hasn't been tainted by an oath to enter that parliament yet, has he, Pauline? He hasn't been tainted by the United Nations locking him down, has he, Pauline? He'll find that out when he gets into power. Now, I stopped at the Apple Tree Creek markets this morning for a feed, and I sat down with Arno Blank and had a conversation. This was after I went to see LMP Stephen Bennett. What an arsehole this guy is, and ignorant as a muppet too. We went to this LMP table at the markets, and he couldn't answer any question, and he kept palming off all the Queensland responsibilities to the federal. Oh, that's not a Queensland responsibility. That's a federal responsibility. He couldn't answer questions about the police. He couldn't answer questions about the hospitals. He couldn't answer questions about the state of the roads in this country. He just couldn't answer a question. And he had no interest in supporting the people. This is a career politician wanting to stay in career politics because he's got nothing else to do. He's got nothing else to do. And he's not the kind of politician that works for the people. He's a career politician. So let's continue with this letter. Pauline, Malcolm, both know me and my work. It is very clear that Pauline has used much of this work in the Parliament. We see that it stopped Welcome to Country dead in the water, but the state continues to undermine the people at a state level. We have a serious problem in this country when all the national parks of Queensland have been removed from the National Park Trust and handed to Aborigine tribes and named as Aboriginal names. Who manages what in Queensland today? And this is a very harsh reality for all of you that have been arguing with the federal government. You've all ignored the very state that you live in. You have all ignored the sovereign statehood that state should have. You've all ignored a line of authority in the Constitution to that state that got undermined in the Australia Act 1986 after Letters Patent 1984. None of you questioned a foreign crown coming into your sovereign country and overriding your Letters Patent 1900. No one questions these things. They're all career politicians. It's just a job to them, not a duty. The reason I rang Nick was his video in the future document that this federal government signed into with the United Nations, wherein at 6E they wish to commit a war crime against the Commonwealth of Australia. And you would sit there and let it happen without raising legal reasons to stop it. At some point we speak of a coup d'etat occurring before everyone's eyes, and you are all ignorant to it occurring. I can assure you that I have soldiers speaking to me regularly. Your army doesn't want to support it, which is why the government pushed soldiers to stop serving God and start serving the government of the day. And we saw this in the letter from the ADF to those soldiers, pushing those soldiers to adhere to government policy while having an impartial view in that government policy. It's an impossibility if you are stuck in the policy to have an impartial view of the policy. It's also a crime. They've put the military into national service, conscription, employment, not a duty with God, not before and above the Constitution, under it, as a slave to that government. This is a serious problem, and it needs to be addressed. I sat and spoke to Arno about this problem. Pauline, you have a massive problem. You displayed a Zionist flag in the Parliament. This could be construed as a Section 44 offence to many, but they own the courts in this matter, so they close the gate behind them. Let me be very clear. The Australian government and the oath you took is not in line of authority to the Constitution. This puts you, as actors of the state, directly under those laws of armed conflict. You can't escape a war crime, even if it takes 20 years to catch up. Look at Milosevic. Let me be very, very clear on the matter. You are supporting foreign interests that have been deemed to be international war criminals at the ICC. 125 countries agreed that contractually, Israel no longer exists. Those stuck in its money game are stuck in its money game, and they all need to consider what aiding and abetting war crimes actually is. Section 44 says it very, very clearly, is under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power, or is subject or a citizen or entitled to the rights or privileges of a subject or a citizen of a foreign power. So what is dual citizenship under this United Nations model? It's citizenship on top of your naturalisation. They can't take away your naturalisation when they give you their citizenship. So Pauline, Section 44 says it very, very clearly, is under acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power. Do you adhere to Israel? Do you adhere to London? Do you adhere to the United Nations? Are they considered to be foreign powers? Would this then consider you to be outside of the Constitution, Pauline? Acknowledgement might be wearing a scarf showing adherence to that foreign power in the Parliament. Acknowledgement might include operating under Great Seal of Australia and not the Great Seal of the Commonwealth of Australia. And we have covered these in the videos. Pauline, maybe you should watch the videos. I mentioned to Nick that I was the named Sovereign King of Australia as per the Supreme Court of New South Wales 2021. This is only a confirmation of my work, going back 20 years or more. The evidence on the table cannot be denied. I have sat with all police forces. They are all aware of the fact that I have done what I have done, sealed the realm of our forefathers, and defined your executive to be operating outside of Section 44. A coup d'etat is currently occurring in the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia, and you are all allowing it to occur. You should be pushing criminal charges on these people for acknowledgement of adherence to the United Nations over and above Australian sovereignty. This is seriously important. Pauline, I'm going to make this as clear as crystal. We have a right to bear arms, and we have a right to go to war. We also have a right to accuse you of war crimes, and we have a standing that should be recognised in the United Nations. You tried to poison me for my beliefs long before the forced medical procedure and medical experimentation that COVID is and was. You do realise that anybody aiding and abetting that has stepped into the realms of a Nuremberg offence, and I will make it as clear as day for you. The Criminal Code 1995, Volume 2, contains all those crimes you have all participated in. You have an opportunity to stand up. So we attached some legislation, the Imperial Acts Application Act 1984, demonstrating that at Schedule 1, I think it's number 9, 1 William and Mary Session 2 is the Bill of Rights 1688. Australians believe they have no Bill of Rights wherein acts inside every state imply the right of the Bill of Rights 1688. Subjects' arms, that the subjects, which are Protestants, may have arms for their defence suitable to their conditions and as allowed by law. That the subjects, which are Protestants, have a right of defence, have a right of defence, have a right of defence. Now, Pauline, we can argue the law and the Great Seal of the State of Queensland and the Australia Act and the foreign interests you serve in that Australia Act, you thought was confusing. Well, we know all about it. It's called genocide. Is any law after Letters Patent 1984 lawful in the Commonwealth of Australia? It is not. We could argue that after Menzies joined foreign interests in 1940, that you have been serving foreign powers and not the Commonwealth of Australia or its Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia as per the Constitution. What is the Australian government, Pauline? It's not defined in the Constitution, and there are law letters from 1973 from the legal fraternity questioning this creation, Pauline, questioning this very creation of Australia over and above the Commonwealth of Australia. You have a serious problem in Australia. Your police serve the Hague and United Nations, not the states. Your treasurers don't manage the Treasury. They fight a debt pushed through the RBA. Your states are being taken over by money, and you haven't got the brains or intellect to do anything about it. History tells you all. You acted with the devil's interest and not God's. And in this, you will collapse. Be found to have been aiding and abetting serious war criminals and will suffer the consequences at that law. It happens over and over the world, around the world. You are inviting it to happen to our country by your mere ignorance in the foundations of this country, in God, King, and country. I am technically, lawfully, and physically the King of Australia, holder of the Australian Imperial Crown, sealed and separated by its own sovereignty at the League of Nations 1919 at Versailles. I have witnessed 20 years of your government denying the sovereignty of the people in this country to push national sovereign ideology of the United Nations. You have disregarded the sovereignty of the peoples of this land while using Aborigine for your own devices at their expense, using them to gain traction in foreign interests. This is a profit-a-pronder scam. It's a crime, and you're all party to it. You have an opportunity to speak up for once instead of goose-stepping the UN government lie. You'll come to realise, Pauline, that 20 years later, I'm still here, aren't I? I was accused of being a terrorist organisation for trying to be lawful with God. If you can't see this, then I don't know what to say. Your government is an evil institution, and we are here to clean it up of the war crimes you have all been complicit in and have common purpose in. Realise this very, very strongly. 20 years later, I still stand as king of my people. See all those red standards your government attempted to defame as sovereign citizens? What a disgrace to Anzac, who died under that flag. I now have soldiers at my wing, a wing you all tried to paint as right-wing, while you use left-wing propaganda to undermine real Australians. You know what you are doing. You know it's a Kabbalistic practice of brainwashing, and you know where it comes from. We aren't right-wing. We are the de jure inhabitants and natives of the Constitution at which you are party to an administrator in the United Nations, as it holds the Commonwealth of Australia as a trust territory. I'm using words here that you make no mistakes. I mean what I say. Read it here. This is a link to the Kiskonen case at the Supreme Court of New South Wales, where Justice Lonergan defines a curial right in the matter. I want you to consider New South Wales Police attacked a sovereign at law. I am that sovereign. It is unlawful to compass me. It is unlawful for anybody to stand in my shoes. So I ask you very clearly, very, very clearly, why do you serve Great Britain and not Australia? I could keep going. I have much to say. It cannot be done in one email. You should organise your party to come and sit down with me. You will come to realise very quickly that I am not mucking around here. I speak it. I walk the walk. I talk the talk. I think you should gather your whole party and organise to hear what I have to say and see what I have to show you. You serve a foreign government that serves foreign interests, and it's the bottom line. Now, before I sign off, how can Aborigine be the sovereign when they became the citizens under referendum 1967? What is a sovereign? What is Albo doing? Why are you undermining your God to replace it with foreign gods? We don't serve foreign gods. Only through the Father we serve our gods. Judges 2:12. Did you go whoring after the gods around you and forget to uphold your own? Those Anzac would be spinning in their graves right now. It's a disgrace. So you can see that I'm not mucking around here, everybody. I've put this on the courtroom record. I've stood in many jurisdictions speaking this, and I stand to it very clearly every day. I haven't changed my modus operandi. I haven't changed my claim. It has stood there for 15 years. It stood there when someone else by the name of James Francis also made the same claim and was proven to be correct himself. If James is correct, then how can I not be correct? This is very clear. And we need to understand that this government is the one attacking you all. So Pauline, Nick, Arno, Malcolm Roberts, I would suggest you go through the videos I have put up. The police already have. I'm the one that they won't accuse, because they know I have enough to shame them in any court. The activists know it too. I'm a threat to this whole Albo disgrace. Now, I've attached some videos here. Maybe you should familiarise yourself with my work, because I'm not joking around. There's a link to my Locusts and Honey channel. Maybe you should learn what we are in international law. That's a link to the Mankind video. Maybe you should learn why Great Britain chains us. That's a link to the video titled Chains. Maybe you should learn that we know exactly what you are all doing in this country. That's a video called Coup d'etat. Maybe you should realize what genocide actually is when you acknowledge foreign interests. That's a video titled Genocide. So we can see here that I have clearly put a legal standing down in this email and sent it off to One Nation. They are actually obligated to this because it is the Constitution. They are actually obligated to this because it is administration. They are actually obligated to this because under the ICCPR, we have a right of self-determination to return to formally who we are as the naked owners of the Constitution, at which they came here to administer. It's not a corporation in the sense that you can hand it over to a new company owner. It belongs to the people on the ground, and no other country can take that away and take it back home to their homeland. This is our homeland. We don't serve foreign gods. What you might come to realize now is you aren't dealing with idiots like 99% of the voting Australian population. We aren't going away. We only grow stronger every day as a people realise the blue ensign is a GovCo flag and the red standard is a land flag under Hague Conventions, wherein we have a right of self-determination under Article 1 and 18 of the ICCPR. You have an issue in that you're all ignorant. This is an idiocracy where the idiots now run the show while the bankers hold the treasury. Last thing, Pauline, I asked you what was going on with the Kuranda Range. I'll now point out what the F is going on in the military. Self-driving trucks serve what purpose, Pauline? They don't stop for starving people, do they? I need you to gather your party, and you need to come and see me. You need to learn. You need to see. I'm not lying. Everything I have ever said in the last 10 years is the truth. You work for foreign interests and serve foreign gods. A link to 75 years of UN peacekeeping on Australian soil. Will you give up our sovereignty as a country? Because every day I see you doing it. And it's going to stop, Pauline. I will give your party all the support I can, but you need to realise something. We will not serve Queensland, Australia, or the United Nations. We will serve God, the Australian Imperial Crown, and the Kingdom of Australia as defined by your Anzac at the Treaty of Versailles. You can sweep this under the rug all you like. I have the atlas. I have the evidence. We will no longer serve foreign gods, and we are the naked owners and lawful lineage in that constitution. And in that, you have a serious legal issue. You're not a lawful parliament. End of story. Regards, Stephen Rex. What the rest of you will come to realise is this, that the power is with God. God is this foundation in your country. When a foreign interests come into your country to manage you, it is a coup over your gods. It is a coup over your gods when they lose a right of administration. It is a coup against all of you for a government to not listen to the people and undermine everything that this country is, from its military down to its assets in its electricity, its railways, and so on. You have seen them undermine your country continually on behalf of foreign interests, and send your men and boys off to war to die for interests that are not of this Commonwealth.